Hello, my name is Matthew, and I woke up this morning and I found a comment left on my 1400 subscriber Q&A, and it was left by Hannah from Hannah's Books, one of my booktube colleagues and one of my favorite booktubers. She makes just these wonderful thematic book videos where she'll pick a topic and explore it in a really insightful, enjoyable way. And her demeanor, her approach to talking to the camera is always so assured and reassuring. I'll leave a link to one of her more recent videos. I love listening to the things that she talks about, and her videos are great. She recently did some videos on Jane Austen and Shakespeare. She had a great, I think it was like a two-part series on Sappho, the poet from Lesbos. But she left me a comment, and I'll just read it. Congratulations, how exciting. Thank you, Hannah. I would love to hear more about your painting background and how you see it developing in the future. Also, how do you arrange living in a tiny house with two different hobbies that can easily take over any amount of space one has? And this left me in a little bit of a dilemma because I had already recorded my Q&A video, and the answer to this question is much longer than I cared to just type out, and I also didn't want to just ignore the question. So I thought I would share a little bit about my background as a painter, and hopefully it'll be an interesting story, so we'll just see. And pretty much my earliest memories, that, as early as I can recall, I wanted to be an artist. I loved painting, I loved drawing, and anything that was visual and creative. I loved spending my time in those areas. And in elementary school, I would constantly get in trouble for doodling in the margins and things like that. And it was in elementary school when I was at the library flipping through a big colored art book and saw these beautiful color images of paintings just throughout history. And at the corners of the painting, it would have information. It would say the artist and the year, but it would also say the medium. So it would say oil on canvas. And I decided that I wanted to be a famous artist, and I wanted to paint oil on canvas. That's how I was going to be a famous artist. And my parents, who to this day are nothing but supportive and encouraging and willing to help me with any sort of creative endeavor or anything like that, were right there with me. I wanted art supplies, and my parents went out and got paints. I think I started with maybe acrylics or watercolors, and I painted every day. I drew every day. It was my favorite thing to do, to take these colors and smudge them around and make images and practice and feel like I was getting better. And in middle school, I was so interested that we made the decision to send me off to a special middle school. It was called a magnet middle school, and it's the type of school that has specific subjects that they focus on. So there's something for fine arts and language and science and computers and drama and so on. And I went to this middle school to learn how to paint, and it was fun. It was a really positive middle school experience. And towards the end of middle school, I also started taking art lessons outside of school. So it was a private school that taught how to paint like old Italian masters, and totally different than a public school experience. It was much more serious. It was a school for adults, and you would learn to use better materials, quality canvas, really good sable brushes. You would make your own pigments. You would take powder and grind them up and mix it with oils and get these unbelievably luscious, buttery, vibrant colors that you cannot buy in a store. We would make mirage mediums to thin the paint out. So when we painted in those thin layers, we kept the vibrance and the light and the really dense pigments that can come through. And I learned technique, how to paint realistically, how to start with a cartoon and judge light and shadow and composition. How do you properly apply paint to a canvas? I loved it. And I painted every day and practiced and got better and better. And all through high school, after school, I would paint every single evening, all of my weekends, all of my time. I was railroad focused on painting because I loved it. I got a scholarship to go to college just from my extracurricular private activities, my own painting world. Not for the arts. I went to school for graphic design, for visual communications, and I painted almost all through college. I took all the art classes they had as electives and got a degree in visual communications. I didn't like it. It was not a good fit for me, and although there's obvious overlap between the fine arts and graphic arts, I did not enjoy it, and I did not like exerting my creative energy into other people's projects. And that's sort of where my use of my degree ended. After college, I still painted every day. I painted almost every single day since I was a little kid. And all this time was accumulating paintings, dozens, hundreds of paintings. I started having little art shows, cafes, restaurants, bars, sometimes little art galleries, and they were fun. And I sold paintings. Everything was affordable. $10, $20, $30, sometimes $100. I've sold paintings upwards to $1,000, rare occasions. And I loved exploring and painting really big things and little things and things that were realistic and abstract and all sorts of different styles, and all the while learning my own style. And it's everything that I love. As I was painting and getting older, going through my 20s, my art shows and my ideas about art became more ambitious, and I would start having thematic shows where I would pick a topic and explore it visually in all sorts of paintings and have shows and sell some. One of my more ambitious shows was the stories of the Bible, and these were large, I believe they were 3 foot by 4 foot wooden panels that I built with my friend. And I did a series of paintings from Adam and Eve all the way to the Last Judgment. I did David and Goliath, crucifixion, and Noah's drunkenness and the Tower of Babel, Jesus walking on water. There was over a dozen of these paintings, and it was a fabulous show. I was really happy with it. It didn't sell well. I priced them more than I should have, but I was very happy with it. And after this, my eyes got bigger and I got more ambitious, and I scheduled a show a year in advance, and everything was all set up, and this was going to be at a proper art gallery in Baltimore City. And I decided to do a portrait gallery of the lives of the people in the lives of Plutarch. So Plutarch did these biographies of Greek and Roman historical figures, historical and mythological figures, that he paired together. So each biography had a counterpart. It was a Greek and Roman, a Greek and Roman. And I spent a year studying and reading Plutarch's lives, and then making portraits of these figures, where each portrait would have a defining feature of the historical figure, and they would be painted as a diptych. They were meant to be together. All the while, I did over 20 of these as a whole. So each painting was a standalone. Each painting had a counterpart, and then the show as a whole was meant to be looked at together. And it was a huge endeavor, a lot of work, and very rewarding. About 2 months before the show, I should also say, I had planned on having my friend who lives in LA, it was an old high school friend who became a DJ. She had traveled all around the world DJing, and she is very successful. And the art gallery that I was having this show at had a DJ booth, and they had all the equipment and things. So I hired my friend. I said, I'll pay your rate, and I will fly you from LA to Baltimore to go perform at my show. And her family lives here too, and we're good friends. So there was a lot of good things working there. 2 months before the show, the curator contacts me and said that she accidentally double booked the month, and I lost it. I was not having this show that I had specifically planned and worked on for a year. The plane ticket for my DJ friend had already been booked and was non-refundable. I had to find another venue, and it was a mad scramble. I ended up finding this warehouse space that I now had to pay for. I paid $2,000 for 2 weeks. It was this huge space, much larger than my Plutarch series, or there was a lot more space than just the Plutarch series. And I booked it. I decided, instead of just having the Plutarch series, I was going to also have my whole Bible series, the stories of the Bible, and everything that I still had. And I managed to fill this gallery with upwards to 100 paintings. It was a solo show that turned out to be a retrospective. I had paintings from when I was in middle school and high school, all through my 20s. Anything I had left that I had not sold. And I had other more recent things that I was doing outside of the Plutarch series. The gallery did not have DJ equipment. And for the size of the space, I had to, the day before the show, go to DC and rent all of this professional DJ equipment. I was getting worried because I'm dumping all of this money into this thing. I decided to advertise, and I got advertisements in the local paper and the big city paper, and other things started adding up. I spent thousands of dollars to get this whole thing together, and I managed to pull it off. I had all of the artwork in this gallery. I had my DJ friend there with all of her equipment, and she was able to play her music. The show had a successful attendance. Hundreds of people came, and it was a great fun night. There was there was a bar for drinks, and there was dancing, and dozens of paintings. And overall, everybody had a great time. It was an extremely memorable event. It's a funny coincidence, but my Facebook account sent me one of those reminders. It says, "On this day," and it turns out the opening of that show was 6 years ago today, on the day that I'm recording this, 2014. I did not sell a single painting. I had one painting that had sold prior to the show. It was outside, had nothing had nothing to do with the show, but there was an agreement to have it hung up. Otherwise, everybody came, everybody had a good time, everything was priced accordingly. I had spent thousands of dollars that I didn't have. This is all on credit. And I took it as a personal failure. It was devastating and demoralizing. I wasn't angry or bitter, but it was extremely disappointing. And I went through a sort of depression about this. It felt like a catastrophic failure to me. All the while, friends, family, associates were telling me that it was a smashing success. And in a lot of ways it was, but not a single painting, not a one. And I didn't paint for a year. And after that, in the meantime, I painted occasionally, rarely, not enjoyably. I have not had an art show since. At the moment, most of my creative energies has been going into making these videos, and it's been a great way of expressing myself in a very different way. Your question asked, how do I see it developing in the future? And so many of those goals that I have had that were so much a part of my identity have been taken away from me. I no longer imagine myself as a famous artist or a working artist. Instead, my immediate plans and long-term plans are to just spend time making paintings just for myself. I fairly shortly will start a self-portrait. I've painted probably over 100 self-portraits since I was a little kid. It's always a great exercise, and there's something about spending a lot of time looking at yourself in the mirror. And I'm going to carry on that way. As I paint, I might share things with you. I did have a few little things that we did for fun, birds and fruit, and we might keep doing that. But as far as that feeling that you get from creating something special, those expressions and that time I'm going to spend just for me. And I think I'll end it there. This is quite long. So, Hannah, thank you for the question. I hope that was a good enough answer. If you have any questions, please let me know. And if anyone else has any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below. And thank you for watching.